guys, welcome to a Legacy Enchantress video. This is Spatula of the Ages. Happy Bannings Week. So this has been recorded on February 19th. Earlier this week, on Monday, there was a banning announcement in multiple formats, including Legacy, and I think the overwhelming consensus is that, at least in Legacy, that this is really, really good news. So Oko, Thief of Crowns, Dreadhorde Arcanist, and Arkham's Astrolabe are banned from Legacy. In addition, there is a rules change that has effectively, obviously not banned Tybalt Cosmic Imposter, but made it so it no longer works with Cascade. So we're looking at a completely different metagame than we were looking at a week ago. Oko, Thief of Crowns has been in the format now for 2 years. Along with Arkham's Astrolabe. Dreadhorde Arcanist, I guess, as well, but I think Dreadhorde was the one that took a little bit longer for people to realize how overpowered it is. So a lot of people are obviously talking about the impact this has on Legacy. I think it's really healthy. It's a good start. There's probably some other cards that could go on the ban list, but I'm pretty happy with these changes, and I think it's very reasonable from this point to give it a few months and see how the format develops with these cards absent. Notably, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath was not banned in Legacy, although it was banned in Modern and Pioneer. It's obviously an insanely powerful card, but without Arkham's Astrolabe, it does take a bit more work to actually get it out. That said, I have seen a lot of decks. If you're in a fair blue deck, if that's what you're wanting to play, then there's incentive to see, especially now when everybody's in an experimental phase in the format, to see if you can make Uro work in your deck, because that is going to be a very, very difficult card for other fair decks to contend with. All right, that said, let's talk about some of the specific impacts on Enchantress. So Enchantress has been in a rough spot pretty much since the beginning of the Fire design. The first Fire design set, War of the Spark, contained Narset, Parter of Veils, which was a huge problem for us. And on a less maybe advertised or obvious note, also Blast Zone was a big problem. Karn the Great Creator was also not fantastic, and we're not directly affected by Teferi Time Raveler in most ways, but it's just generally a powerful card, and it does give a lot of those decks a main deck way to bounce an enchantment and then counter it without losing the card from the bounce. So the Fire design has not been kind to us, and then Modern Horizons had Plague Engineer as well as Force of Vigor, both cards that are very, very strong against us and just generally powerful. I'm not going to get too much into design and ban list philosophy in this video, but I do think a huge part of the problem with the Fire design is the asymmetry of cards like Plague Engineer, where if it were a symmetrical card, it would require more consideration. It would still be very powerful, but you couldn't necessarily main deck it in a fair deck because, like in the mirror match, what do you name? If you name human, your Snapcasters are also affected. And it's not as versatile. It still probably would just be a very powerful sideboard card, but it wouldn't be quite as problematic as it is. So moving on. The cards that we've actually gotten from recent sets have been fairly limited. There was a second block set in Theros. However, of the playable enchantments in the set, one was Underworld Breach, which we were not the deck designed to abuse that, and of course it shortly got banned because it was basically just Yawgmoth's Will again, but 1 mana less. Klothys, God of Destiny, which is a powerful option if you're in red. And then Destiny Spinner. And Destiny Spinner has been very, very good, but hasn't been enough to overcome some of the other obstacles in the metagame. So talking about the impact of the bans on Enchantress, you know, a lot of people might think, I think you know, the level 1 analysis is that Enchantress doesn't really care about Oko Thief of Crowns, but that wasn't really true. First of all, it's just a 1 mana or 1 card kill condition, right? That can just escalate. And our ways of interacting with it are, uh, we could Oblivion Ring it. That was an option. Of course, Oblivion Ring can be Abrupt Decayed, and because these decks are playing Arkham's Astrolabe, they can run 4 colors very easily, and a lot of them, sometimes even 5 colors. A lot of them are running main deck Abrupt Decay, sometimes 3 or 4, which made Oblivion Ring pretty questionable as a removal spell. You know, you could play Cast Out, which is much better against the Snowcode decks, but is very, very awkward against Delver decks because, you know, it's very easy to daze that, or even to stifle the trigger, and then you've lost 4 mana. Dreadhorde Arcanist is probably the band that least affects us directly. That card made main deck Ground Seals very, very good, as well as Rest in Peace if that's the plan you were on. And Arkham's Astrolabe, you know, we're not attacking people's mana, so that card doesn't directly affect us. So that's the level 1 analysis. The level 2 analysis is that these cards were killing off all the decks and strategies that we were good at against. You know, Arkham's Astrolabe made everybody's mana base as stable as ours, right? This card is basically Abundant Growth, but an artifact instead of a green enchantment. And all the decks that would take advantage of weak multicolored mana bases that are trying to do too many different things, you know, those decks died off. And Wasteland decks were, you know, we have a very good matchup against almost every Wasteland deck because our mana base is so basic land heavy. So those decks became much, much weaker and less prevalent, as well as like Blood Moon became much worse, and that's another card where like if they invest in a turn 1 Blood Moon, you just play basic forest, wild growth, don't care. You know, that's a fantastic opening for you. So those decks disappeared. Oko Thief of Crowns, you know, killed off creature-based decks, which made you know, like Maverick, D&T, and other like mid-range creature-based decks just basically disappeared from the format, like at least until the printing of Skyclave Apparition. And those decks were good matchups for us. It also inconveniently was an answer for non-white to Doomwake Giant, which, you know, Doomwake Giant basically, it lost a lot of stock during the Oko era. I think Doomwake had been a fantastic card before that in almost every matchup. And then just during the Oko period, it was very, very weak in comparison. So we're in a new metagame now, and people are trying a lot of different things. I've played some matches online. The big beneficiaries, I think, you know, we're going to see a lot more Stompy type decks. Chalice of the Void is back, so is Blood Moon, and other color Stompy decks probably as well. You know, White Stompy, as well as potentially green Sylvan Plug. Could come back into the meta. I guess Urza Stompy never really went away. That deck obviously has a lot of upside. Is very strong. What I mean is some of its hands are just very, very difficult for a fair deck to beat. Other beneficiaries, obviously Wasteland lands, which got Valakut Exploration in the meantime, and as I mentioned earlier, also has received Blast Zone from Fire Design, which is a big problem if they run it. Not every list I've seen is running it now. There's also like different types of lands decks now, and Blast Zone is also potentially a problem in any kind of Dark Depths, Turbo Depths, or Rainbow Depths. Shell if they're running it, right? Because a lot of our plan against Merit Lage is Elephant Grass, and Blast Zone is very, very good against Elephant Grass. So the last thing I guess I want to talk about meta-wise is, of course, Enchantress's arch enemy, which is now unfortunately threefold: Hullbreacher, Narset, and Leovold. I guess technically Notion Thief, but I think Stryfo's the only one who plays it. Um, Hullbreacher has seen a big burst of popularity. Anurag Das was playing a deck called Snow Day. That was, a pretty typical snow list, except for running Days Undoing and Hullbreacher. I think that deck was a bit of a fad, and I think Hullbreacher is a bit of a fad. People like the new hot thing. I think it was a twofold beneficiary of the Oko meta. First of all, the deck itself was just supported by running so many bannable cards. And secondly, Oko made people start to play the game differently. People were encouraged just to do this like dummy tap out thing where you just every turn you play like a haymaker threat. Um, and, you say like, answer this. And Hullbreacher was really good against that because people would like tap out for an Oko, you would Hullbreacher, um, then you Days Undoing, and they lose their hand that had interaction spells because like Hullbreacher dies to every single interaction spell, right? Source of Plowshares, Abrupt Decay, Lightning Bolt, Force of Will, Red Blast, Lightning Bolt, even uh, Punishing Fire, right? But because people were encouraged to tap out just by the way that metagame had formed, that was a reasonable answer to it. So I honestly think, although we'll probably see some Hullbreacher in the beginning, I think it's probably going to be mostly relegated to Merfolk at the end of the day. Um, Unlike Narset and Leovold, which I think are just much more solid cards because they can replace themselves. Leovold, of course, requiring more. At this point, you can't really reliably go four-color Leovold, so you're going to see a lot of Sultai decks. I've seen a few Sultai decks online. Other people are on Band to try to play like Noble Hierarch and get Uro more consistently. And of course, people are trying Grixis again now that blue-green isn't just so overwhelmingly the obvious choice. So when you're building an Enchantress list, working on Enchantress, you need to be considering these three cards, right? Hullbreacher, Narset, and Leovold. And we need to have answers to them. So let's talk about some potential lists. So I asked Stryfo to see his list, and he sent it to me, which was very nice. Let's look. So I think he calls this Monograde Storm. It's a Turbo Enchantress list. It's running 4 Guys Touch, which is a double green enchantment. So what the card says is different. It now has 2 activated abilities. One is a mana ability. You sacrifice it for 2 green mana, so it can just replace itself mana-wise. And the other ability is 0 mana, put a basic forest from your hand into play. So this actually can net mana the turn that you play it, unlike Wild Growth, which, if you play it after turn 1, it's mana neutral. This is actually mana positive. It also works really, really well with 2 other cards this deck is running: Raphilos' Gift, which is reveal any number of green cards in your hand, return an enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand for each card revealed this way, and Early Harvest, which says untap all basic lands here she controls. And then the kill on this list is Destiny's Spinner, and then there's 1 Grave Shot. So this list has not a lot of interaction for the 3 cards that I mentioned, our 3 main threats. I guess Plague Engineer is sort of like 3.5, right? It's not as devastating against us as Narset or Leovold or Hullbreacher, but Plague Engineer is a big problem because, our girl here is a 0/1. So this list doesn't have that many answers to those. It does have more answers to Narset in that, now that we have Destiny Spinner, you can see to have a Spinner if you have 8 mana, or a Hard Caster if you have 7, and just attack and kill the Narset, and your attacker will also have trample, so it'll probably get through any like jump blocker that's around to protect her. But against Leovold or Hullbreacher, this deck doesn't have a lot going on. In the main deck, in the sideboard, there's a couple Beast Within. And then like Veil of Summer maybe to help that resolve, and an Abundance. So Abundance is sort of a catch-all answer, but it is of course 4 mana to resolve. And it says if you draw a card, you may instead choose land or non-land and reveal cards from the top of your library, blah, blah, blah. So basically, the way that this works is mechanically, Hullbreacher is a little bit different than the other two, Narset and Leovold. So like with Abundance against Narset or Leovold, you have to replace all your draws. So you can't ever naturally draw, and then you get to just keep on replacing with Abundance. Against Hullbreacher, it doesn't matter if you've drawn already because it's a replacement effect. So that's just going to be a permanent answer if you get to resolve that. But that said, the problem with most turbo lists is you're a little bit weaker to the haymakers, right? To the Narsets and Leovolds, but you are a lot faster, right? This deck is pretty reliably turn 4. I've seen him stream it. It's probably possible to do turn 3. I also think the enchantment count's slightly low. Rephellus's Gift when you're going off, I guess, kind of counts as an enchantment. But I might want to add just 1 or 2 more enchantments to this personally, especially because like when you're sideboarding, a lot of these are not enchantments, so like post-board, your enchantment count's going to go down even more. But this list is pretty cool. Let's talk about some other potential lists in the new environment. I'm very interested in... so there are 2 cards from the new set from Kaldheim. They're both sagas. Binding the Old Gods and King Arthur's Betrayal. Binding the Old Gods is the more flexible one, so let's talk about that first. It's green, black, 2 colors, so it is 4 mana, quite a lot. And it says, when it comes into play, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. So that's when you put 1 lore counter on it. So I guess quickly let's talk about how sagas work. So saga comes into play with a lore counter on it as it enters, and then at the beginning of your first main phase, you also add a lore counter. When you add each lore counter, they do something. So the first lore counter says destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. The second says search your library for a forest card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. And the third says creatures you control gain death touch until end of turn. The third one is very unlikely to matter. There are situations where like giving an attacking Destiny Spinner death touch means like it can't just be blocked and killed without cost by like a Gurmai Gangler or something, but generally it's not going to matter. The first one is the main thing that we're interested in. The second one is nice. Like you get extra forests, put them into play. That can matter a lot when you're playing Destiny Spinner, right? You want more and more lands. It's a very mana hungry deck as well. But mainly we're playing for the first one, and it's also interesting because of its interaction with Estrid's Invocation. So Estrid's Invocation is a card that I've been a very big fan of. This is a little bit pre-Fire. I think it was Commander 2018. Blue, 2 colorless. It's a copy enchantment, except if it does copy, and that is an if clause, it has at the beginning of your upkeep, you can flicker it. So what that means is you can use it with cards like Abundant Growth or Ground Seal or Binding the Old Gods in this case. And what's cool about that is also during your upkeep you flicker it. It comes in with 1 lore counter, and then it also gets the second lore counter at the beginning of your first main phase, so you do get the extra land out of it. Which is just, again, good for, first of all, deck thinning, and second of all, once you've done it multiple times, you're talking about substantial deck thinning. And then also just for having more mana later on. The second saga that I want to talk about is King Arthur's Betrayal. So this one says the first lore counter says each player mills 4 cards. Then you may exile a creature or planeswalker card from each graveyard. And the 2 and 3 are the same. Until end of turn, you may cast spells exiled with King Arthur's Betrayal, and you can spend mana as though it mana of any color to cast those spells. So I was very interested in this when Post-Oko was very dominant, because this card is really, really good against that type of deck, because you're very likely to hit a Haymaker, because that's all they play is Haymakers, right? In addition, what interests me about this is that combined with Estrid's Invocation, this is a way of accruing resources that doesn't draw cards. So it is unaffected by Narsets, or anything like that. You can also play like Trial of Ambition is another one with Esther's Invocation. And in the shell, obviously, Yorion is a perfect fit. This deck is doing what Yorion does anyway, right? Just come into play effects. This list would have been running Arkhim's Astrolabe in some number, but of course that got banned. So that is a significant loss for mana stability, especially in an 80 card deck. You know, you do run into more variance issues. So that is a weakness of this deck. You can support Force of Will. I'm not sure yet whether that's correct, but this deck, you know, is something I'm working on. It's definitely not at a final stage yet. So moving on. Another way to go is green-red. So this list is sort of a hybrid lands Enchantress, which is an interesting option because of a few enchantments recently that Lance has been playing, right? Valakut Exploration plus Exploration. These are both enchantments. You can also run Dryad of the Elysian Grove and Courser of Krufix as an alternate way of accruing resources that, again, doesn't care about Narset or Narset effects. You also get red cards like Clothis. Seal of Fire kills Hullbreacher as well as Plague Engineer and can sit there threatening a Narset and prevent her from being able to fully cash in. You also get Cinder Vines, which is a very interesting card because it gives you additional options against combo decks, certainly against Storm or against Doomsday, as well as answers to problematic enchantments and artifacts. So this is, again, something that I've only had limited testing with. And you also can run Hall of Heliod's Generosity. So this is another card from Modern Horizons that I'm still trying to figure out how to work this into an Enchantress list. It is rather slow, right? You're spending 1 white, 1 colorless, tapping to put an enchantment card from a graveyard on top of your library. So you do get back an enchantment, but you know, it replaces your draw, so you're not going up resources, but you are getting back something that's potentially powerful and can be useful with some things that sacrifice, like Cinder Vine, Seal of Fire, etc. And another advantage of this is you get to run Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast in the sideboard, and those answer Leovold, Narset, and Hullbreacher pretty well. So this is a more stock Enchantress list. This is actually kind of going back in a lot of ways to the old Solitaire list, like that I was running in like 2004 or so, because it's running Words of War. So this is a very light red splash, unlike the last deck, and it is running a Clothis as well. But a lot of the time you're not going to cast Clothis, right? You're going to get it off of Green Sun Zenith. So what's good about Words of War, of course, is that not only can it kill Narsets, etc., but it also can replace your draws, so it's sort of a double answer. You can also run multiple cast outs and then replenish, which works pretty well because you can cycle them early if you just need to hit your land drops or whatever, or find another Enchantress, and then you can bring them back with replenish, as well as On Thin Ice, which doesn't answer Narset but does answer the other two. This deck has, you know, it's really a 2-color deck with a very, very light red splash. You can also run Blood Moon is playable now, so you know these are options. Okay, so I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but if you're interested in Enchantress content, there is a Enchantress Discord. I will post an invite in the description for this video. Please join if you haven't already. Now, I would like to review the main list that I've been playing. So I've played 3 leagues with this now. I went 2-3, 5-0, and then 3-2. So it's performing pretty well. Even the matches I lost, like the last couple, I flooded pretty hard. In the first league, I got paired against Combo a bunch, but I never really felt like the matchups were that one-sided. I think Green Cloudpost was actually the most difficult matchup because against Storm, I played against Ant. You know, we bring in so many sideboard cards in this list. So this is a bug list. It is technically running white in that there's 2 Serra Sanctums, a Caracas on the board, a Knight of Autumn, and a Gaddock Tea. But again, these are more likely to be Zenith targets than they are to be hard cast. And we'd be relying on Abundant Growth, Utopia Sprawls. We're not playing a Savannah or a Natural Sanctum or Karakas. It's mainly Bug, right? And the blue is main deck for the 2 invocations. So I found that in the more Estrus invocation heavy lists, sometimes it can be a problem because it is a little situational. It's basically, effectively, it's like an enchantment planeswalker, right? Because every turn you can choose different modes for it, make it do different things. You can get additional mana by copying Utopia Sprawl or Wild Growth. You can copy an Elephant Grass to slow down the opponent's plan. You can draw cards or destroy stuff or kill creatures. But it is situational, right? If you just have a couple invocations and you have nothing to copy, it's not very good. So that's why in this list there's only 2 of them. The blue is also for some certain sideboard cards, running 1 back to basics. In the Eye of Chaos, this is a pretty cool card because it's useful against both the grindy decks as well as a lot of the combo decks. And also pretty useful just against decks where you think they're likely to, for instance, Dredge or Hogak, not Dredge, Hogak, for instance, or possibly even Depths, where you think Force of Vigor is something that you need to be wary of because this is very good against Force of Vigor. And then I'm running my own Leovold. We have made a friend of this enemy. And 1 Uro in the sideboard as well. And then technically, I guess you can kind of hard cast Mindbreak traps. That's happened to me before. And then the black is for a couple bindings. Doomwake Giant. Another second Doomwake Giant in the board. Leovold. I guess you could cast Ley Lines or Surgicals. And then 3 Abrupt Decays. So this is something I tested when I was playing a turbo list. So mono green turbo list running 4 Unbridled Growth, 4 Abundant Growth, and 4 Utopia Sprawl plus 1 or 2 Carpet of Flowers to have access to black mana without playing any bayous, because you're running Gaia's Touch and you just want to play basic forest. What I really liked about that list was I was running Abrupt Decays, and I really, really like this as an answer to Narset, Leovold, Hullbreacher, but also it's really, really good against Delver as well. Just being able to turn to kill that Delver, stop their clock, and like next turn you can play an Enchantress around a daze without just wasting a turn and taking extra damage, right? Because against Delver, if they have pressure, you don't have time to play around days. Which is obviously why it's such a tier 1 deck. This list is running 3 spinners, a couple ground seals. People have asked me about this. I think you have to run ground seal if you're running Invocation. Without Dreadhorde Arcanist, there's a question of what it affects. A lot of people are playing Snapcaster again. I'm not sure whether that will stay that way. I'm not an expert on the types of decks that would be running it. There is also Mystic Sanctuary to consider, which is a card that slots very easily into a lot of blue decks. And then Life from the Loam as well is affected by Ground Seal. And then there's some other random cards. This actually doesn't, technically, I mean, it does something against Reanimator, but Reanimator is such a bad matchup that this is unlikely to be something that makes a big difference. Like, even if you get it out on time, they can still exhume. So, 1 main deck Carpet of Flowers. The 1 main deck Doomwake Giant, 1 Mary's Guile. I see people run 3 of these. I think that's not very good because the second one just does nothing. It's nice to have, but it's not necessary. And multiples, people kind of seem to think of it as Ponder, but Ponder replaces itself, which means multiples are good. This doesn't replace itself, which means multiples are really, really bad. Okay, so that's the main deck. The sideboard is, as you can see, pretty tricked out, right? We've got 5 free pieces of interaction to help us with the combo matchups. So against a very fast combo deck, we're going to mull pretty aggressively into those. Against a more turn 3 or 4 combo deck, they're still very nice to have. We also have Leovold, Collector Oof, Gaddock Teague against combo decks, life gain in the form of Knight of Autumn and Uro. In the Eye of Chaos, we've also got Back to Basics Choke against certain mana bases, Collector Oof, and then the second Doomwing Giant for creature-based decks. Yeah, so that's the list. Let's go over the games that I played. So I'm going to go over the first 2 leagues that I did. So let's see. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So I didn't change the list because even though I went 2, 3, the list actually felt very solid. So, you know, bad records happen. You run into opponents who are, also running good decks. So, obviously that was a mull. Let me maybe do this a step at a time. The first one had no mana, so that was a case where the basic swamp really hurt us. So this list is running a basic swamp and 4 verdant catacombs as part of the mana base, because black is the more important splash in this list. I mull into an OK 5. It doesn't have turn 1 acceleration, which is unfortunate. But it does have, the ability to play the whole hand, right? All these cards are playable with the hand that you have. So any draw is fine. We're not like reliant on finding another land or something like that. So we lose, our best card. Play a land, go. Opponent played Underground Sea. So, in the previous meta, that would have almost certainly meant like Doomsday, right? But in this meta, you don't know. It could be even a fair deck, although I'd be still inclined to think that Underground Sea, Thoughtseize meant combo. So just pass. Samiri's Guile. So here we have a question, right? What do we play? We could play Ground Seal, especially if this is a fair deck. Playing Ground Seal now means they can't Snapcaster Thoughtseize. Playing Destiny Spinner here is very bad against a fair deck because they could just Fatal Push, right? But if they don't have Fatal Push, you could Destiny Spinner, then draw a Enchantress and be able to resolve it. I think what I do is just play the Guile, which is just the more like neutral option because I also have a Shuffle. I have 2 Shuffles, right? Put 1 on board. And if they Snapcaster Thoughtseize, it's not the end of the world because like I don't really care that much about these cards. Like they're nice, but they're not critical. But I think as we're about to see, this turns out to not be a fair deck. This is Ant. So it doesn't really matter. And we're dead. Okay, let me pull up. Adelaide is the list I'm running now. This is an Over the Garden Wall reference. Anyway, so this is same list. Against Ant, I'm bringing the Mind Break Traps, the Ley Lines, the Uro for the life gain, Leovold, Knight of Autumn for the life gain, and the Eye of Chaos Choke, Back to Basics, Gaddock Teague, Collector Oof, Surgical Extraction. So 13 cards come in. I take out the Bindings, the Abrupt Decays, the Doomwing Giant, the Grasses, the Ground Seals because they interfere with Surgical. I don't know if that's enough. I think maybe I cut 1 land. I'm not sure. I'd also be willing to cut certainly at least 1 Enchantress in this matchup. In a lot of matchups where you are clearly the control and not the beatdown, it's fine to take out 1 to 2 Enchantresses presence, possibly even Argothians if, there can be reasons to take out Argothians over presence. Enchantment count is 1, or just anticipation of a lot of like sweeper anti-creature stuff. Let's go to game 2. So this hand has double Mindbreak Trap. So, you know, obviously I'm going to auto keep that, even though the rest of the hand is quite slow. I'm relying on my opponent, especially in game 2, not really respecting my hand and just sort of anticipating that I might have some hate permanence because, you know, historically that's how Enchantress might deal with. So that's a good draw because we actually get to do something with our second turn instead of just being still till turn 3. But the opponent is probably anticipating that, you know, we just have hate permanence they need to deal with, so they probably bring in like some bounce or something. Here I get to Mindbreak Trap it ad nauseum, and the game is going to be over. There's a question like about hitting the ritual. If I only had one Mindbreak Trap, that would have been a thought, but since I have the second, it's fine. And I draw a Surgical, which is great. No, I have 2 pieces of free interaction in hand, and I'm drawing cards. I will continue drawing cards next turn. I got the Trot for the Esther's Invocation, so that's not obvious, even though, you know, we are running both Choke and Back to Basics, but if I get either of those in play against them, I'm fine to lose some of my resources to deny them theirs. So, I mean, they Echoing Truth that, but I'm also happy with that, right? I've still drawn cards off of it, and Echoing Truth is a card out of their hand that's not killing us. I get In the Eye of Chaos, and I think at this point the game is over. I think maybe I play... No, I can't play the Gaddock, right? I still don't have Utopia Sprawl or an Abundant Growth. I thought the opponent conceded, but I was wrong. Alright, I wouldn't play more than 3 Enchantresses. That's something I see sometimes people do when they're playing the deck. 2 or 3 is usually all you need. You don't need to keep playing them out. Sometimes you're forced to if those are the only enchantments you have in hand and you can't afford to just pass. There's too much risk involved, so, you know, sometimes you're forced to get 4 out, but you don't really want to. Here, I'm opting to not cast a Leyline. I don't want them to have that information, or the Surgical. I don't want them to have that information going into game 3. I think this game is over, so I'm not really concerned about it. I think I actually have to just keep beating them down. I don't think they can see it. So again, I'm avoiding discarding these. They know about Mindbreak Trap. It's obviously too late to do anything about that, but I want to keep as much information from them as possible. And because this is Ant and not TES, the Leylines are actually pretty good. Against TES, I don't even know if Leyline would be worth it. Surgical is probably still good enough, but Leyline is probably iffy. It's probably better than something that we have in the main deck, like probably better than Presence or something, or... Well, I don't know, like, TES has also got more, like, reliance on Wishclaw, so like they could like turn 2 Wishclaw and pass, and then like something like Abrupt Decay or Binding would be okay. So maybe that's better than Leyline. But against Ant, yeah, Leyline's pretty good. They're much more reliant on Pest and Flames and Cabal Rituals, obviously. Okay, so we mull this. No, we don't mull this, right? It's got to turn to Leovold or In the Eye of Chaos. But here the opponent takes our Utopia Sprawl, which is a good choice, right? Because they can't... They could take the In the Eye of Chaos, right? But then we still get a turn to Leovold. That could have backfired if we drew another Wild Growth, but we did not. Here we lose our In the Eye of Chaos. So this isn't the worst. Again, at least they're losing resources, but we did lose one card we really wanted and the ability to kind of, you know, do anything before turn 3. And now I think what's about to happen is we will turn 3 Leovold, but by then it's too late. They've already had 2 Preordains and a Ponder. So unfortunately, Leovold is too late to this party because they took our Utopia Sprawl. And we're on the draw. So they're just going to go off. Now, Leovold could be relevant if they didn't have bounce, because, you know, every copy of Tendrils targets, and that would give you, you know, 10, or in this case, I guess 9 chances to draw into a Mindbreak Trap. But they'll this is post-board. They'll certainly have a bounce spell they'll be able to fetch up. So yeah, Level's just too late to do anything. And we do not draw any of our free action off of the discard spell that they play, which I think was not a great choice on their part. They didn't really need to play that. Like if I had a Mindbreak Trap, I would have used it earlier. We do not draw action off the Echoing Truth, and we're dead. I keep this hand. It's not a great hand, but it does have a turn 1 Mirror's Guile, which is, your only 1-drop you can play off a non-basic without, fear of Wasteland. They play some stuff that I don't really care about. I draw a basic, which is nice, but it doesn't really change my claim. Lavinia could matter in the sense that, like if we light on a Wild Growth, it could actually stop, a turn 2 Presence or turn 2 Zenith. Because in addition to the no free spells clause, it also says you can't cast non-creature spells with casting cost greater than the number of lands. Or rather, it says opponent, right? Because it's new asymmetrical design, which is, again, pretty bad. But they play it to Fairy, which is annoying, but not game over against us. It's annoying mainly because, it just can sit there and wait to bounce something. They choose to bounce a land or a sprawl, presumably just to get the draw. They do have an Urza, which is scary. We have Ground Seal. Ground Seal is okay against this deck because it stops, what's her name? Lock Lady? I can't remember. The one that has affinity, and when it comes into play, mills 4 cards and can get back an artifact every Emery. But they're not on Emery this game. And their board's looking pretty scary. They played their land first, classic mistake. Not that it made a huge difference, but we dodged a spin of Urza there. Now we get to play Enchantresses, draw some cards. And we're looking not so bad, actually, at this point. So it kind of depends on what their turn looks like. We've got a Destiny Spinner worth 9 enchantments. So next turn we can actually start threatening Planeswalkers through even a Construct. They decide to just attack, I think, here. Okay, very interesting. This is the Snow Hate card we were promised, and is incredibly underpowered. Well, there's a Squire, I guess. Doomwake is a very good draw here, although we unfortunately, I think, do not have enough mana to fully capitalize on it. If we had one more land, if we had a land there, we could have cast Wild Growth for free and had the extra. Oh no, we did. We were able to kill Urza. Wait, okay. There is still obviously a Construct. What is their draw? It's another Urza. Okay. And then their spin is an oval. Okay, we're forced to block here. No, we have grass. Okay, we got it. We did get game 1. Okay, right. So I guess we lost the post-board games. Okay. So how did we side here? Obviously we would bring in Gaddock, Teague, and Collector Roof, right? Teague, we didn't see Echoes or Karn, but I don't believe that they're not playing them. We bring in Night of Autumn, We bring in Mind Break traps, because that stops most of their really busted turn 1 and turn 2 plays. We take out, what did we take out? Grasses, though they were relevant that game. Carpet is just too situational. A lot of their lands aren't islands. And I don't know, maybe a presence or wild growth or something. So this hand is moderate. It's good against Emery. It also has a turn 2 Abrupt Decay. Turn 1 Chalice. So Destiny Spinner is another big beneficiary of the bannings in that Destiny Spinner is really, really good against Chalice. So like having Chalice decks around makes Spinner really good. So they're having an explosive hand. I've got a turn 2 Karn. And they are very, very easily capable of having a turn 3. Yeah, we're just kind of screwed here. Turn 3. Lattice. We pass, see if they have it. They just need 1 more mana. They don't have a lot of cards, though. They do have 3 draws. We get to Abrupt Decay that. So there is an argument for Abrupt Decaying the Opal to take them off of Lattice this turn if one of these 3 cards is a land. However, if we do that, we are going to be losing 1 land a turn to Karn, and I don't see how we beat that. So we're certainly going to lose to this, I think. We're probably going to lose to Lattice, which I think is what ends up happening. I think they have the mana. Yeah, so we're dead. Okay, so the first hand had only 1 land, and Utopia Sprawl, and no backup land, and not great payoff for it either, so I think there was an Argothian, but whatever. This one has a turn 1 Abundant Growth to let us cycle. We find another land, we can play the Spinner, and then another Abundant Growth. Once we get Knight of Autumn online, that's good. And Mind Break Trap stops a really busted, like, last game. I think they had, like, a turn 2 Karn, for instance. The trap would have stopped that. So, turn 1 Emery. Okay, we found a land. That's great. Spin. Next turn, because it was a Sanctum, we actually have Knight of Autumn online without having to find a 3rd land. Although not amazing Knight of Autumn targets. I think that was their 2nd spell, right? So we couldn't cast the trap. I opt to kill the construct here. I'm worried about their pressure. I can't, like, hitting a land seems pretty pointless with Urza out, right? Oh yeah, I bring in a Caracas. I definitely brought in a Caracas here because of Emery and Urza. With Urza out, there's just no point in hitting a land because every artifact is land for them now. It's pretty silly that this card was templated to make it Urza's ability rather than like each artifact you have has tap to add blue mana. It is blue, right? Alright, now they've got Psy, which is kind of a problem. I didn't bring in the 2nd Doomwake. I think I left 1 in. Narset is obviously also a big problem. Was that was their 2nd spell again? No, why did I not? That was their 3rd. I could have hit that. What was it? Because this can attack? I think I should have hit that with Yeah, because they wouldn't have had the card unless it was the top card. No, I can't do anything about it. I think I'm actually about to die, right? Because they can just. Oh no, this is their. Right, so what's going to happen is they're going to cast the Lattice. I'm going to be able to trap it. But unfortunately, the way that Karn works is he can also get exiled cards, not just sideboard cards. So my Bag Trap exiles it. I have the Doomite Giant, which is great. I'm able to. Oh, this is the one where I'm like one short of being able to actually win the game. Right, yeah, so like, if I had one more enchantment, one more trigger off of Doomwake, I can, so yeah, I kill their Karn. I can kill these guys, which are the problem. They have another Karn, unfortunately, and then they get back their Lattice and are able to cast it. And because of Psy, they've got jump blockers. And then I had another artifact, so they've got too many jump blockers now. Like if I could at least kill one of these. No, I mean I'd still have to like get through a 6/6 next turn. So yeah, unfortunately the second Karn got us. So I believe that this one is Death in Texas. This is the perfect hand, right? Turn 1 acceleration, turn 2 Argothian plus action. That's our best opening. It's grass, so it's not ideal. If it were Abundant Growth or Mirror Scowl, that would be better. So I opt to play the Presence instead of Argothian plus grass because it's Death in Texas. So what are Death in Texas's turn 2 plays? Rishadan Port, especially without a vial. Rishadan Port, Thalia, and possibly Spirit of the Labyrinth. So if they go Thalia, Presence is going to be much, much worse next turn. If they go Port, Presence is going to be much, much worse next turn. By playing the Presence first, if they Port or have Thalia, my turn 3 is going to be better than if I play it in the other order. And I also might want to hold on to this grass rather than just throw it away early to cycle cards. Whereas if it's against a fair deck, a grindier deck, I don't mind throwing away the grass because it's really just not that important if the opponent doesn't have a clock. So that's why we switched from what would be the normal plan of Argothian plus 1 green mana enchantment to Presence. If it's Spirit of the Labyrinth, we're just screwed because we don't have a way to remove it in hand. And then, like, you know, we might have wanted to draw the one extra card to get closer to an Abrupt. Well, Abrupt Decay would be pointless because they have a Mom. They are attacking with her, which I think is pretty risky. But okay, so we lose our Enchantress. It's annoying, but they don't have any pressure. And they couldn't tap out for it. So we gotta have a double Enchantress turn. They couldn't tap us down because they had to play Skyclave Apparition. Okay, Stoneforge is like the least scary 2-drop in their deck. It really doesn't matter most of the time unless you're just already losing. To accelerate their clock with Sword of Fire and Ice, which is the correct call for them to get, because Batterskull is stopped by grass, because the germ is a black creature. So yeah, we just go off here. This game is obviously over at this point. I think it goes up for a few more turns, but I'm going to start skipping to the end. This game's clearly over. Unless I had like main deck Cataclysm or something. So this hand is okay. So sorry, I need some water. Against Death in Texas, some of their best cards are obviously Flicker Wisp and Rishadan Port because they're really good against our land auras. So you don't really want to be overly reliant on them. But it's actually better to, if you do have to rely on them, to get them in multiples, because I can now spread them across 2 lands. I'll turn 1 Sprawl. If they have Thalia, I'll just play Sprawl on the second land, then possibly cycle the Abundant Growth to get us closer to our 3rd land drop. If they play Port, we'll still go land Utopia Sprawl. And we can also, because of Abrupt Decay, when they port us down, if we name black, we can just, if they don't have Thalia, we can go ahead and Abrupt Decay the Vial before it becomes a real threat. When it's on 1 or 2, it's annoying that they get that tempo, but it's not threatening per se. Here, I think they play Thalia. Yep. So we can't really do anything here. We could have. Oh, that's right. We're opting to just kill the Vial. I don't want them to be able to, if they, so they passed, so they don't have Mom, right? Or they would have already dropped her in. So I want to get this before they gain too much tempo out of it. We've got another land drop, we've got more mana. If we stifle their ability to develop their board, then I'm not that afraid of this match. Which is honestly why I'm pretty skeptical of the Yorion D&T list, because it's such a different deck when they have turn 1 Vial and when they don't. So here I opt to develop my mana instead of Presencing, which turns out to be a good call, because then they play Deafening Silence. Oh, I guess I couldn't have Presenced. So we're just developing our mana. We are facing a significant amount of pressure, right? We just took 5. We play the grass before the presence, because we can only play 1 spell a turn in Deafening Silence. It's more important to stop their clock. We don't play the Sanctum because it's just going to die to Wasteland. So it's better to actually save it a turn we're going to use it, which isn't this turn because of Deafening Silence. Again, we're choosing to save our Sanctum. We've got our 1 spell. We've paid for it. We don't need to play it out and lose it. We are facing down a port. And yeah, we're facing lethal next turn, so we need to draw Doomwake Giant, which we do. Not gonna lie, this is a very lucky top deck. We obviously sided in Doomwake Giant. I guess I didn't go over that. So against Death and Taxes, Caracas just straight up replaces Carpet, so it's the so you're running 21 lands plus 8 growth. Collector Oof comes in, Knight of Autumn comes in, and Doomwake comes in. I take out Ground Seals, and then I think maybe 1 Presence or 1 Zenith. No, I took out both Zeniths actually, I think. Just you want to reduce some of your higher end curve stuff. It could be maybe 1 Presence and 1 Zenith, just because the Zenith, can get you the Knight of Autumn, the Oof, or, it can be either action or action that affects the board, or a draw engine, so maybe it should be split like that. But you definitely want to cut some of the higher curve stuff, especially because you're bringing in the second Doomwake, and that's 5 mana, even though, it's really, really powerful against them. I think they're going to Swords us here. Oh, okay. I choose to play that on the non-basic. They're at 1 card in hand. If they draw a Wasteland, we're punished for it, but it's also generally better to risk the Wasteland than to just keep piling the enchantments on the same basic land against Death and Taxes, because they have both Port and Flicker Wisp. Right. They don't have Swords, okay. They play a bunch of artifacts. They have no creatures. Oh yeah, I think I brought an Uro as well in this matchup. Okay, they go ahead and they opt to kill the Oof, rather than the Doomwake Giant, which I suppose makes sense. They have enough mana to play a creature and equip it, and hope that I don't have enough enchantments to kill it. They don't know about the second Doomwake in hand. I go ahead and play the Doomwake Giant. If they have a Cataclysm, I want to be able to play it out while I still have mana. And if they Cataclysm, I'll save creature, enchantment, and land. One of these, it doesn't matter. And then that's, going to be good enough against a Cataclysm, post-Cataclysm board. I don't know whether Death and Taxes will go back to running Cataclysm more often. I think I've seen some with and some without. But if you do play against Death and Taxes post board, I would anticipate it, and you can beat it by just when you're ahead, you don't have to keep playing lands. Just make sure you have some lands in reserve. And especially if you can get some Doomwakes out, then you really don't care because your board post Cataclysm is going to be better than theirs. You can rebuild faster than they can because you're going to keep killing their creatures. So as long as you keep Cataclysm in mind, it's really not that threatening. I think I've lost to it like maybe once in all the matchups I've played against Death and Taxes. Okay, so we haven't been playing against any fair decks so far. We played, or not fair blue decks, I mean. We played against Death and Taxes, and Urza Stompy. Sorry, I went through that too fast. The mulligans happen so fast when you press play. I should probably just wait till we won the die roll. So this hand like folds to a Thoughtseize, right? We have a turn 2 Enchantress, and we have a Decay, which is nice, but the rest is lands, 5 lands. That's too much. We have to mull this. So this is something that'd be really risky on the draw, but it's pretty solid on the play. We're gonna go turn 1 Wild Growth, Enchantress, land. So at this point, the mull is one of the off-color spells. It's going to be the Invocation because we need to be able to react to potential things they could be doing. And we don't currently have a fixer, so the first fixer is going to have to choose either black or blue, right? Turn 1 Forest go, so I don't know what that means. You would expect elves to play something. It's snow-covered. Don't know what that means. Okay, so right, this is the Cloud Post list. Yeah, I think this matchup's quite bad. We have 1 back to basics in the sideboard. Like Collector, Oof, could be okay depending on the list. Gaddock could be okay, but not great. I think you really need to try to race them. Or get back to basics and play are your 2 realistic plans for winning with this list. This is a matchup that is very, very different if you're running like the turbo list like Stryphos that I showed earlier, because then you just, like, this match is probably just a breeze. You race them, you have Zenith and Spinner, so you don't care about Chalice, and like, yeah, what are they going to do? And like the decays are very, very bad here, obviously. Like Reclaimer is probably their only spell that I could hit, but like I had to kill that early, and then so my binding had to go to that. So I mean that's a good draw. We're able to accelerate a lot faster now that we have these abundant growths, these ancestral recalls, wild growth. We're looking at, we'll probably win next turn at this rate. We can't quite win this turn, I think. Yeah, I think we needed like 1 more land to be able to win this turn, is what it ended up being. We also haven't drawn a Zenith or a Spinner, but I mean, that'll come. Yeah, there's a Spinner. But now, yeah, see, unfortunately, if we had a land, we could, well, even then, I guess we would need 2 lands to attack twice. So we have the win for sure next turn, but I think it's going to be too late. They're going to do something here. What do they do? I'm looking out for an All Is Dust. Right, they get Glacial Chasm. So they have a goal. They found Once Upon a Time finds Goalless, finds Glacial Chasm. Main deck, I have no answer to Glacial Chasm, and Post-Board, my only answer is Back to Basics, in the sense that that answers it. So yeah, Glacial Chasm, very, very good here. We can kill the Golos. Whatever, kill a token because we got nothing else to do. But realistically speaking, there's just no way that they're gonna die from the Glacial Chasm before they get a chance to, like, cast an Emrakul or something. Yeah, there comes the Primeval Titan. Prime Time gets Eye of Ugin. Now they've got a bunch of Locuses. We can kill Prime Time, but it's already done the damage. Emrakul, the Promised End. So I killed my presences here in response, just on the off chance that can prevent me from, when they take over my turn. I've got 9 cards left in the deck. They're clearly just going to deck me. They go ahead and let my Invocation die. Very uncool. Because it didn't copy, so it got the 3rd age counter, and now Invocation is also dead. I should have not discarded the other Invocation so that I could keep the loop going, but it wouldn't have mattered. Can't beat Emrakul, the Promised End. I mean, I guess they can't, like, kill my stuff with it, because it says permanent opponent controls. Which is also more of that, like, putting everything in bubble wrap for, like, not that I'm dismissive of, like, trying to make things accessible for new players, but when it comes at the cost of, making deck design a redundant part of the game, and then it's not as cool. All right, so we obviously bring it back to basics. I bring in the traps because even though I'm unlikely to cast the alternate cost, it's a mid-range combo deck essentially, right? Like, and I can Mind Break Trap and Emrakul. Or an Ugin or something. So I bring that in. I bring in Take, and back to basics. I don't remember if I bring in Collector Oof or not. I think I leave in Carpeted Flowers just because, and the Grasses, because, like, you just need to erase them, so you need the cheap enchantments. I think I just cut a bunch of higher end stuff because it's not like. Maybe I brought in the Eye of Chaos. I think I did, because I was anticipating Force of Vigor. So this, I'm not afraid of Wasteland, so this is fine. I'll be able to go turn 2 Enchantress. If I draw a land, I'll be great. And again, right, what we need to do is race them. And this is a hand that can race them, especially if I draw one more land. I'm really good to race them. So I have the Reclaimer. So notably, that's not a turn 1 Cloud Post, so, like, that's good. We get more time. They do have another Cloud Post. There's no reason for them to not attack there. We keep not drawing land, so that's very unfortunate. Okay, we finally found a land. We're gonna play the carpet out first because these are both kind of useless, but this one I don't have to pay upkeep. Probably wondering why, like, the opponent is probably wondering why I kept it in, but I think that actually does make sense. Like, again, we've only got 2 ways to beat this deck. So I'm okay, yeah, they force a Vigor, which I think is a little greedy. Like, they're not maybe respecting some things that I could do here. Like, if I had the back to basics there, that would have been game, right? But I did not. I think it's in, like, the bottom 20 is what it ends up being. We are going to kill. What did we end up killing? the Golos, because the Reclaimers, you know, they've got a Reclaimer no matter what. I can only kill one permanent this turn. They're going to end a turn Reclaimer. Obviously, the BUG is going to become an Eye again. So this means we have probably 2 more turns, right? Because they need to actually use the Eye and then cast whatever they get with it. And they do it main phase, which is a mistake, right? They're giving us more chances to draw into back to basics here. We draw a Mindbreak Trap. Maybe I didn't bring in Gaddock. I think maybe I didn't, no. I honestly can't remember. We're going to try to get the Invocation in play as a binding and kill a Reclaimer. But first we're going to try to go off. So, what's in the opponent's hand? It turns out to be a Mindbreak Trap of their own. Unfortunately, we did not have the blue floating to counter back with our own Mindbreak Trap. So the Mindbreak Trap are back to basics, which is not good news for us. And now they've got Cloud Post plus Caracas, which is infinite Emrakul attacks. So that's obviously game. All right. So this is the 5th game, the 5th match of the first league. We are on the play. This is a great hand. You know, it doesn't have an Enchantress itself. It does have an extra redraw with Ground Seal, which might also be relevant against whatever they're doing. It has removal. And we're hoping they're on blue, right? Because we've got the carpet. If they're not on blue, this hand is medium. But if they're on blue, it's quite good. We'll go ahead and name black, because we've got the binding. And it's also just, you know, the dominant secondary color. Or I guess, you know, the secondary color, not the tertiary color, which is blue. Okay, that's a very good draw. There's a debate to be had about whether to play the Wild Growth first. It might have actually been correct to do so because of binding the Old Gods. Also because now people are playing Spell Pierce more, so you know, I might want the extra mana. And we also have the carpet anyway. So I think I probably should have. Well, maybe that's why I didn't do it, because I have the carpet. Yeah, so let's go ahead and kill a counterbalance. There's a Spell Pierce indeed. I think I make a mistake later. When you're at the end of a run where you're not, where your record's not great, you start like not paying as much attention and making mistakes. And I think I walk into this Spell Pierce that we know about, which is obviously silly. Right, I walk into it with the carpet. Although I don't know. I don't mind it that bad. I don't mind trading the carpet. I've got mana now. I don't mind trading the carpet for a counter and a card. Now that, like, they still have Uro, right? Uro plus Sylvan Library. That's still a problem. But card advantage matters more now that they don't have Oko, because like they don't have one card that just does everything. That said, they are looking at, you know, Uro coming back next turn. Go ahead and draw a card. Spinner, and then we can play Guile around the Spell Pierce because of Spinner. I expect the Spinner to eat something that they're holding onto in hand. Yeah, presumably a Swords to Plowshares. Yeah. Okay. So this is a very long game, if I recall correctly, because here I decay their Uro, which is obviously not great. But I also can't let them untap with it, right? And attack and just get free cards every turn. As well as, you know, take 6 damage every turn. So, you know, I have to deal with that. They play it again. I don't have a lot of cards in hand. So we're going to have to take a hit from them. I'm going to take the shuffle, the Guile. Obviously better than the other cards. Grasses are obviously going to come out in this matchup. Teferi is annoying. Again, mainly for the bounce. Although I guess it does mean we can't decay things instant speed. I'm going to take a big hit here. And so now we're facing down, obviously, a pretty bad board. However, yeah, so that's good, but, it's unlikely that our first spell is going to resolve through a counterbalance. If there were varied costs between those three cards, there'd be an argument for, like, drawing one, then waiting, and then drawing the other, so that we can play one through a counterbalance, but they're all 2 drops, so that wouldn't work. So just run it out, make them use their resources to counter it. They get another hit with Uro. Not looking great. I take the decay here, and what I'm going to do so their Snapcaster hits a ground seal, but it is 2 damage, so we're looking at 1 life. An Uro, a time Teferi, and a counterbalance. So not a fantastic board position, to say the least. So what we opt to do here is just, abrupt decay the counterbalance. And then hope that our Gothian resolves. Does it resolve? It does. So we can Wild Growth there. But I think we're still dead, right? Because why is it not going? We play a Destiny Spinner, they bounce the spinner, or they just counter the spinner. And then we can't block the second creature, we're dead. Grasses come out, 1 land comes out, Uro, Leovold, Doomwake come in, as well as Choke, and the Eye of Chaos as well. Okay, this hand, since we know they're on blue, it makes the carpet very, very good. So we're going to lead on Guile here. There's no reason to, well, if you're on the play, there's no reason to lead on carpet. Let them, that just discourages them from playing islands, which you don't want. You want to encourage islands. They don't shuffle. We take the binding. We've got the land. We don't want to shuffle those cards away. Those are all pretty decent. Lead with the carpet now, then ground seal, and now our sanctum is looking really hot next turn. We're going to have, between carpet and sanctum, we're going to have so much mana next turn. Let's go ahead and kill that. Then draw some cards. Draw some more cards. There's Enchantress. There's a Sylvan Library that we're going to be able to kill. And more Enchantresses. Very good. Very nice. Brainstorm in response to the Enchantress. Enchantress again. And kill your Sylvan Library. And now we have an overwhelming board position against them. If they did have something like a Narset, we would need to find either another Decay or some other kind of answer. But other than that, it's lights out. I didn't bring in Caracas here because it's a Bant list, not a Sultai list. If it were Sultai, I would bring in Caracas, because you don't run those colors. Not run Leopold in any kind of fair blue deck. So this hand's good. It doesn't have any off-color mana, which is awkward, but it's got some action off of Argothian and Destiny Spinner. If we draw a fetch land, a Utopia Sprawl, or an Abundant Growth, we're good. If we draw more Enchantresses, we're good. So it's got a lot going on and a lot of potential. I think this is a mistake. Turn 1 explosives, whatever, I don't care. If you want to trade that for an Abundant Growth, like, that's fine. Like, I need the colored mana, but it's also, I've drawn a card off of it, and you've spent 3 mana and haven't drawn a card, so pretty bad trade for them. I could, like, decay here, but I don't think that's necessary. I don't run the Wild Growth out into the explosives, especially because, you know, next turn we can draw a card off of it. Here they Sylvan Library. So Sylvan Library is pretty scary against, it's pretty scary for us, right? We can't really pressure their life total that well, only through Destiny Spinner. So, you know, you do want to try to deal with the Sylvan Library as fast as you can. So I take it off the board. You know, I guess I could end up regretting that if they just draw a Narset or something naturally. But I'm willing to take that risk to get rid of, you know, their ability to draw like 3 extra cards and filter what they draw after that. They do have a counterbalance. That's annoying. It's not the end of the world, though. I'll Destiny Spinner. Okay, that bites a Force of Will. I guess they know the 3rd card off of the Brainstorm, so they didn't bother to check the counterbalance. I don't think they were anticipating Uro, but that's pretty good. We draw land. I don't play the Sanctum. There's no real reason to. They could run Wasteland or something. They play their own Uro. They don't have a land to drop off of it, so Explosives is not live. There's a question about what you kill here, but I never got to answer that. Probably, honestly, the Explosives. We have a Zenith for Spinner. We have another one, actually, so yeah, I guess we do both and just kill the counterbalance first. Alright, so that was 2-3. Not fantastic, but like I said, I don't think any of those were particularly one-sided, so I just ran it back. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. Game 1, match 1 of the 5-0 run. We're on the draw. But, so we have the best opener, right? We have turn 1 Acceleration, turn 2 Argothian plus another spell either, and you could even play out this entire hand except for Invocation by turn 2, if you wanted to. This hand is super dead to like a Blood Moon or a Chalice, which are back in the format, unless we just top deck a Forest. But it's definitely not a hand you can mulligan. This is ideal. So, turn 1 Savannah, GSZ, Dread Arbor. I'm really hoping we're not against Elves here. Elves is a very bad matchup. I go ahead and name blue. Okay, good. We're against Maverick. Much, much better. And it looks like Burning Maverick because there's a Taiga in play. I don't think I ever actually see any of their red spells. But, you know, we saw the Taiga. So we did go ahead and play our whole hand here. And we drew a bunch of new cards because we wanted to develop our mana against Maverick. And we're just going to draw tons of cards, put a Grass into play. Grass is not amazing against Crystal Beast, but it is going to stop their pressure. Next turn, we're going to have more grasses off of Vestra's Invocation, unless they get some way to kill the grass, which I think is what they do here. No, they kill the presence, which is reasonable, but then they don't get to pressure us. So another really strong turn. If they don't like have a turn 2 Thalia, you can kind of just like ignore this deck. Game 1. unless your hand's just very bad or their hand's very fast. A turn 2 knight is actually one of their scariest plays. Just because it can go very, very fast, and if you are in the unfortunate position of being reliant on a non-basic land, that can also be trouble. Again, we're pretty immune to wasteland, but it can happen. Here, I'm going to hold up the Abrupt Decay on the chance that I get a chance to use it. I could end a turn, do it, and then binding something, but I think here I get a chance to just yeah, to kill something that's not a creature and can't be protected by Mom, so I'll take it. It doesn't really matter. I've got 3 grasses here, right? So they need 6 mana to attack. And I'm not paying for the upkeep of these, so with Estra's Invocation, it flickers and then copies it, so it doesn't get the age counter, which is how the cumulative upkeep works. So that's another card that combos very strongly with Estra's Invocation. This game is obviously over. I've got the Doomwing Giant now, so that's going to be GG once that thing lands. Even if they have Swords to Plowshares, it's going to wipe out everything except for the Questing Beast and the Stoneforge. And I'll still have these grasses and stuff, and eventually I'll just play a spinner and swing in with a giant elemental. And then after the Mom is dead, I can copy Binding the Old Gods and kill the Questing Beast. So that was game 1. We bring in the second Doomwing Giant. Caracas, again, replaces Carpet of Flowers. And Uro, I think, comes in. Yeah, and a Knight of Autumn, and that's it. And I take out like at least 1 Enchantress effect, maybe 1 Destiny Spinner. Destiny Spinner is okay, mainly just for its body and for the ability to generate elementals, which against Mom is also cool because the elementals are colorless, so Mom cannot do anything about them. So they have a strong start. They got acceleration, and we do not. We are gonna Abundant Growth, especially because we have a Seraph Sanctum in hand. We do have, I mean, we keep this because of the Doomwing Giants, right? And because we've got like Abundant Growth into Sanctum, which means that even though we don't have acceleration, technically we really do because that gets us closer. Did I? Right, I killed the bird to slow them down before the Mom could be active, right? So that's why I did that instead of the Abundant Growth. I just need them to slow down so that I have time to get Doomwing on board. I've got Doomwing next turn regardless, so that's why I didn't play out the Wild Growth first. I am running this into any kind of like removal spell, like Zenith or something. But that's because I don't especially care about the Enchantress's presence, actually. I mainly care about the Doomwing Giant. Deafening Silence is much less scary against us than Ethersworn Canonist, right? Because it doesn't stop the Doomwing or Destiny Spinners or Argothians, which I guess is another reason to leave in all 3 spinners. They are in possession of a quite large Tireless Tracker, but they don't have much mana now because their guy's Cradle has not got that many creatures left. Maybe it took Ground Seals out. Like Scooz is the only card it affects. And we drop back to basics, which is pretty hot, to be honest. So we just take the opportunity to double Argothian back to basics. Now they have no mana. They do have attackers, but we're going to throw one in front of the big boy. Not a huge concern. Argothian Secret Mode as Jump Blocker activated. And here we play our own big boy. They have another Swords. That's unfortunate, but we have 2 bindings in play. So we're just gonna. Oh no, we gained life, so we didn't need a Jump Block. Yeah, so now we're just staring down a Scooz. Now we jump. Now we Abrupt Decay, and yeah, that's it. I guess technically we can't kill this because our Doomwings are dead, but you know, it's just a 1/1, and they're tapped out. And there's a back to basics in play. Yeah, and we start gaining life with our Uro. We can't flash back yet, but there's the abundant growth, and now we can escape. And the opponent concedes. Let me check how much time is left. We still have half an hour. Okay, good. So we are on the play for match 2. So this hand is interesting, right? The basic swamp, again, being a bit of an inconvenience when it's in the opening hand. We can lead on the swamp, not get wastelanded, play the trop next turn, give us a chance to draw another forest or a wild growth. And then, we can also play this whole hand off of these lands. So I don't think you can mulligan this, but it is a bit awkward. So we are going to lead on the swamp to be safe. They lead on Mystic Sanctuary, which is even more awkward. We draw a forest, that's great. And they don't counter our Gothian, that's even better. We're going to lead on the free cards. Generally, just lead on the free cards. You don't like, so if some people, like, I see play the Enchantress first and then the Sprawl, but you've got more 1 green mana enchantments, right? So just play the free card. That's the most draws. Like, always play the free card first. Like, almost always. You should have a good reason not to play the free card first. Like if it's your only enchantment or something. Okay, so Cycling Lake Claim. Very, very telling, right? Now we know exactly what deck this is. This is like a replenished Sharkstill list. Cool art, actually. Well, I don't know, funny art anyway. So we need to race them. We can't stop a 4 mana replenish. This also incentivizes us spreading out our land auras because this thing can steal lands. We don't have the ability to kill them this turn. Next turn, I mean. Right, we've only got 4 enchantments. Abrupt Decay pretty awkward here. I'm not even sure, like other than the shark tokens, what they would play that I can Abrupt Decay. I mean, I guess they might have like Teferis. They could run Narset or Hullbreacher, I suppose. So because I don't think I can kill him this turn, I'm gonna just develop the board a bit. I'll leave Abrupt Decay open. I don't want to run the Destiny Spinner into removal, and I can't bind in anything. They have a really good setup against us. AAA Claim and Shark Typhoon. Not a lot we can do about that. We do have Mining the Old Gods, which means we can kill the Ley Claims and get our permanents back. So I lead with a Destiny Spinner, though, because I've only got the 1 binding in hand. I don't want it countered. I'll redevelop my board. I can't do that replenish trick again. We just have to survive a turn. Okay, there's the other Sanctum. That's good. Interesting to note, Sarah's Sanctum and the Destiny Spinner as well. When they lay claim to lands, they don't gain control of these auras. I still control these auras, so those don't count for their Destiny Spinner or Sarah's Sanctum that they stole from us. But of course, they are playing enchantments of their own, right? Lay Claim and Shark Typhoon. And there's a Teferi. Well, that's something to decay. I think they hardcast Lay Claim on something else. We're in a lot of trouble this game. Technically, we're not out of it yet. We can redevelop and start getting back our stuff. But it's not looking great. And here, I think this was a mistake. I should have spread that. Oh no, yeah, it's because I'm setting up a spinner plus binding. to yeah, to start getting my stuff back. They're just doing that for the shark token, I think. Like, I don't think that's just a mistake. It could be, I suppose. But, you know, generally, it's better to assume, I guess, that your opponent isn't making mistakes, that they're doing things for a reason, because otherwise you might underestimate them at a critical time. They replenish again, get back their late claim. So this plan required them to not have a second replenish. With it, we're just in a lot of trouble. They didn't kill our binding, which is good, because like if they had actually just taken our binding, we would have been screwed. But here they've got lethal off of spinners and sharks. So elementals and sharks heading our way. So we lose game one. Against this deck, I bring in the ley lines, surgical. I think I bring in the Eye of Chaos. I don't think I bring in Uro, but I could be wrong about that. I take out the ground seals, right? If I'm bringing in surgical, I gotta take out the ground seals. And like, I think maybe I leave in one decay. I think I take out some number of decays. So this hand, you know, you get turn one Excel, and then if you don't draw a land next turn, you can just Excel Abundant Growth, always Abundant Growth first, because you might find a forest, and then Utopia Sprawl. But it's risky. I don't want to take that chance. I mull. This hand is pretty weak. I mull again. This hand is what we're going to have to work with. So I think you need to treat yourself as the beatdown when you're on the play. But we do need answers, so I'm going to rely on the carpet for my acceleration. Unfortunately, they don't crack. Very, very awkward. But they're also slowing down their development by not cracking. That's not free for them. So neither of us is doing anything right now, but they're not cycling. They're playing a basic plains and a basic forest. That seems greedy to me in a format where they don't have Astrolabe. I'm just going to cast this, try to find my next land. There it is. All right, next turn I can start actually doing things. I'm going to lead with it in the Eye of Chaos. Again, they haven't done anything either. Neither of us has done anything this whole game except they resolved a Carpet of Flowers. I'm going to lead on an Enchantress. If they crack again here, notably, we could have done something in our second main phase with Carpet. Okay, now Carpet's live. That's great. Alright, suddenly things are going to accelerate. We're going to lead on Uro. So again, I'm leading on the free card. I'm not like necessarily super stoked about, like, obviously I want to draw cards off the Enchantresses, but alright, and here I bring in Gaddock to stop replenish, Force of Will, and as well as like hard cast late claims and God knows what else. So they have a surgical extraction, which I consider very odd that they brought that in against me. I don't agree with that, especially since like they saw ground seals game one. Maybe they just don't have anything better. But I mean, even Swords to Plowshares I think is probably better against me, but maybe they don't realize that. I think in general, like, I've seen people, I would not bring in surgical extraction against an Enchantress list. Maybe if you're running a lot of discard as well, it could be worth it, but even then, I think it's suboptimal. But I see people do it a fair amount. So I'm just drawing the card. I attacked with a Gaddock into a shark, by the way, because I was getting ready to eat breakfast and I wasn't paying attention. So that was just a mistake. Pretty bad one. Luckily, it didn't bite us, but it could have. So we just get rid of the drop, right? Because it's dead to back to basics, which we did bring in back to basics. Okay. I'm not sure if that's right. Well, we didn't see a board like this, like plains, forest, swamp, whatever. So they steal one enchantment. It's not that scary. They're also we have like double Estrus Invocation on the binding now, so that's pretty good. And now we drew our own surgical, which like our surgical against them is so much better than their surgical against us. Because they're the graveyard deck. Did I not bring in Leyline? Maybe I didn't bring in Leyline. Maybe I just brought in surgical. And they hit the Getic, which is very strange. Especially since I already like had the chance to search my deck and realized that it's just a one-off. But we get that one. All right. Game 3. All right, obviously that's an auto mulligan. That's pretty good. We've got Excel, turn to Enchantress, other options in the surgical. I think, yeah, I actually missed what I just shuffled away there. I think the spinner, right? Yeah. Because yeah, we've got this stuff, so we've got options. And if they've got surgical, it could actually be dangerous to like expose the Destiny spinner. So they lead on planes, which is, I don't know what that's all about. I assume they must be running cast out, right? We didn't see it, but I mean they're on white, right? So I maybe could have played the Enchantress first because yeah, now they can hardcast Force of Negation, which is also another like non-bow with the surgicals they brought in. Damping Sphere. That's annoying against us, but it's not that good. You might have even noticed earlier when I was showing you the lands Enchantress hybrid. I had that in the sideboard. It's not that good. It doesn't stop wild growth. We don't need to cast like a million spells a turn. Like we can spread out our storm. I think they have another force here. Yeah. So that's annoying. We do have to watch out for like with the fairy, we can't surgical in response to our replenish. So like that's something to keep in mind. These force negations are preventing us from burrowing though. Yeah, so I'm just gonna kill Teferi here. If they want to Swords to Plowshares, a fetch land, or yeah, they can't shark it. They only have 4 mana, and it's a 3/3. I mean, they could save it, but they lose the shark. Okay, so the Terminus trades with the Destiny Spinner. Notably, though, we have Surgical Extraction online now. We're playing Draw Go now. I'll go ahead and run this out. I don't really care if this force trades with a shark, but I guess I could have played around it. Yeah, right, they Terminus. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. We can shuffle so the order doesn't matter. They replenish, so we're going to surgical in response. I think they straight up misclicked and Force Willed their own replenish instead of the surgical, which is obviously pretty bad. So what we should have been is they'd be hellbent with a Shark Typhoon on board, and we'd also be hellbent with an Uro in the yard that we're 1 card short of being able to escape. I wonder what is the green for? So just Sylvan Library? They must be running Uro, right? No, that's right. They did run Uro. Game 1. Okay, more lands. We're flooding. And they've got a Sylvan Library and a Damping Sphere. But a lot of their deck is air, is the thing. Okay, got a Zenith. Will it resolve? It will. Fantastic news for us. So, Sanctum is a pretty crappy land right now because of Damping Sphere. We're just looking to draw as many cards off of this Enchantress as possible, but we don't want to walk into another Terminus, so... and Spinner's already a lethal threat, right? They're at 5. So I can just hold on to that on its own. Okay, they hardcast it, but now we've got double Invocation. I'm going to go ahead and run them out. There's a choke that's going to be interesting in a minute. Now Uro is escapable, by the way, if that's not obvious down here. So I guess this isn't free anymore because of Damping Sphere, but I'm still going to draw cards. We'll go ahead and Abundant Growth Sanctum. Right now it's just a waste, so like the card waste. All right, drawing out the Force of Will, and we choke. It's a hard cast force, I think, too. Right? So, yeah, that's pretty solid. And then the Eye of Chaos is also obviously going to work pretty well. We did lose our Trop that had a thing on it, but they bounced the choke. Okay, they still lost. They still didn't get to untap these. That was Sorcerer Speed. You can play it again. Okay, we did bring in Ley Lines. There they are, right where they belong in the bottom half of the deck. We bind here. What do we bind? If this resolves, we've also already got the 2 Invocations in play, right? And we do have in the Eye of Chaos to help this resolve. We also, yeah, we're looking at if they don't force this, we just have a lethal attack. If they do force it, we can play Choke. Actually, they can't force. They can force a negation the Zenith, but not the. They can't force Will it because they only have 4 mana available, and in the Eye of Chaos is in play. So we get that one. Game 3 actually, didn't look that good for a while when we were just flooding, but once we resolved that Zenith, we were able to convert those mana, those wild growth into new cards, and that's what Enchantress does. Okay, so we're 2-0. Took a little break, came back later in the day, and what did we play against? So good hand. Turn 1 Excel, turn 2 Enchantress, backup. Grass if we're against any sort of clock, fast clock. Let's see how it goes. Turn 1 Wild Growth is just always your best play. Abundant Growth is there as a backup, but it's really not what you should choose to start with. Turn 1 Noble Hierarch. So this could be Maverick, it could be Bant. Doesn't change our turn 2 play. Double Sanctum is obviously awkward. So I guess this is Bant. I think at the time I wasn't sure because Dougal, the Maverick player, had posted some stuff, and it included like a banned Maverick list that had Teferi in it. Although I think he was saying that like that was kind of a placeholder because he couldn't get the whole Breachers online because they're like 100 or something absurd. But yeah, so they just Uro here. Okay. That's fine. Our possession looks pretty good here, but I think what's going to happen is a very unfortunate sequence of events, right? We just killed off their board. except for Teferi, who we can attack next turn. They've got 4 mana open, and unfortunately this is what's about to happen. So this actually, they tanked a while thinking about whether they wanted to expose their Hullbreacher to this Doomwing Giant that's already in play. So I just need one more enchantment to resolve to kill the Hullbreacher. So I do this, but they've +1 to Fairy, so in response they Days Undoing. That's a fucking beating. Then they Force a Will that. Okay, I'll kill Teferi, or make you trade with the Hullbreacher. Okay, our position isn't great, but it could be worse. Unfortunately, they've got another Teferi and another Days Undoing. And they also play this like huge clock. Wait, do they not have a Days Undoing? Maybe they just have a Force of Will. No, they do. They have a Days Undoing, yeah. So that's game. It keeps going for a little bit. We bring in, what did we bring in? Choke. I think we bring it back to basics. Leovold. Maybe the Uro. We take out the grasses. And then I don't know what else. Maybe a wild growth. Or a land even. Maybe the no, not the basic swamp because we bring in back to basics, I think. Okay. So game 2, we're on the play. Good hand. We don't have an answer to Hullbreacher, but we can't like mull a strong start like this, especially we're on the play. If they don't force this, we'll have a chance to draw cards and dig for an answer to Hullbreacher. They mulled a 6. I don't like that because it does imply that like they might be just mulling into a Hullbreacher, which is probably the correct strategy for them. I did not see an abrupt decay in game 1. So they don't know about that, but it would still be correct, I think, for them to just go all in and protect the queen, which is Hullbreacher in this case. All right, we resolve our Enchantress. So, but they did have a Noble Hierarch, so we might be looking at a Hullbreacher, which is what I'm scared of. But they Uro. I'm happy that they're Uroing. It means they can't Hullbreacher this turn. We get a turn to draw cards. We have one answer to problem permanence. We have Ground Seal. We got to draw a bunch of cards. We got to go Argothian and Ancestral Recall here. All right, so that's a good start. Here they're going to Uro again. Like I was saying, I think a lot of decks right now are just trying to find which deck can house Uro the best. All right, we take 2 damage. Pretty irrelevant. Carpet. I'm going to go ahead and bind. And get Estrid's Invocation into play. So I wanted to kill their stuff. And I wanted to have Estrid's Invocation plus Binding already in play. They escape Uro, but that doesn't matter. I'll just kill it again. I mean, this game's over, I think. They've got 2 cards in hand, and Uro they can't escape. I guess they're 1 card short. But I think I've just got a lethal attack here. So that's it. That's game. Game 3, we're on the draw. So that's unfortunately an auto mull. This hand doesn't have an Enchantress, but it does have 2 very good answers and a redraw and good mana. So it's worth keeping. We will still lead on the sprawl, because that means, especially because we drew an Argothian. So now this actually is a very good hand. We got the choke. That's good. I'm gonna lead with the Argothian, right? I want to first of all draw cards while I can. Second of all, they're not tapped, right? So there's no opportunity to choke here and get them. So here they Narset. Luckily, we have the Abrupt Decay in hand, especially because they reveal Force of Will, right? So if we just had Binding, they would definitely force it. But we don't. We have Abrupt Decay, so we kill it. Then we spin her just to draw a card. Probably eat a Force. That's fine. 2 for 1. Good with me. They Uro. That's fine. Let's try to choke. No? Okay. Well, they're not on black. If they were on black, I might not play the second Argothian just to not walk into a Plague Engineer. This game's about to be over. They don't seem to have any action, and we've got to do my coming in. And okay, we're gonna bind. All right. Okay. So why do I bind in there? Because okay, pause. I bind in here because they have 3 mana open, right? So they could just have a Hull Breacher, and I don't want a repeat of game 1, right? So I'm playing the binding because if they have the Hull Breacher, if they want to stop me from drawing the Argothian cards, then they have to deal with this binding the old gods on the stack. And when it comes into play, because Hull Breacher doesn't replace itself card-wise, like they have to have another way to protect it from the binding that's already on the stack. So that's why I lead on the binding. And we've seen from Bant a lot of Teferi. We've seen maybe not as much like Wilt, but it's probably around, and like Abrupt Decays, I think are going to come up later in this league. So like this is why binding the old gods over an Oblivion Rain effect, right? Because it doesn't give them the chance to just Teferi it, have the Force of Will for the second time you cast it, and then you're still, because it's such a game about you have to kill the Narset or you're dead. You have to kill the Hull Breacher or you're dead. Because of that, Oblivion Rings, the fact that Oblivion Ring could just be itself removed is a major problem. So that's why Binding the Old Gods is, I think, an improvement. Okay, this game's over. They've got an Uro, but I don't really care. I've got a Full Grip, an Abrupt Decay, Binding, in the Eye of Chaos, and Carpet. This game's over. It's gonna keep going for a little while, but whatever. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, 4th match. Okay, we're in the play. Always nice. So this is a good hand. It doesn't have the turn 1 acceleration, but we can play all these cards, which is what you want from your opening grip. So we'll lead on the Guile. We want to encourage them to play Islands. Okay, so this is Delver. This is an amazing hand against Delver, right? We've got Carpet of Flowers, which just annihilates them. We've got Abrupt Decay, which is really, really good against them. This list in particular is like actually really good against Delver. Like the fact that you can just Abrupt Decay their first Delver just really takes their clock away from them. And the longer the game goes, the better things are for you. They can't counter the Carpet, so I'm just going to take this chance to go ahead and kill this Delver. Not give it a chance to do damage to me. I want to preserve my life total. And next turn I've got Sanctum with 2 enchantments already on board, and Argothian and Mary's Gall in play to find more threats. So actually what I'm going to do here is play the Spinner first. They don't have red mana to bolt it, and this way they can't Force of Will my Argothian. Nor can they daze this Abundant Growth, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and refill my hand and develop my board that way. And if they bolt the spinner now, that's fine. So this is another reason you run 3 spinners. I've seen some people talk about running less, because by itself it's not always a direct threat, and it does die to lightning bolt. But it's really actually powerful the way that I just played it here, where you get to run it as interference, right? It goes in and you force it, or you can't force the next spell, which is the spell I actually care about. Okay, they waste the Sanctum. That's fine, because we still have way more mana than they do, and we're drawing even more mana and an Abrupt Decay. So we do want to find a grass. They've got a few threats coming in. You know, our life total isn't very safe. We'll go ahead and we could have copied the carpet if we had drawn a 1 green mana enchantment, but we didn't, so we'll just draw the free card with the Abundant Growth. Probably next turn, I assume we're going to copy carpet. Okay, not much of a clock that they're presenting at this point. They bounce the Invocation. That's annoying, but whatever. It is good to know that they have Brazen Borrower. You know, that's something like if you're relying on a grass to save you, if they have main deck Borrower, that's an out. But we're just going to keep developing our mana, keep drawing cards. Eventually, we're going to find a grass here. Let's go ahead and take some more pressure off, and they just concede. We bring in Choke, Uro, and back to basics. We take out Binding because it's so easy to daze it. It's so high on the curve. There's an argument for the second Doomwake Giant, like especially if they're on Young Pizzy, Young Pyromancer. We're going to go ahead and lead a Wild Growth. It doesn't get dazed, which is good. Their Delver does not flip. That's pretty significant. You know, whether that first Delver blind flips or not is like a whole turn, usually, in terms of how much time you have. Because it didn't flip, I'm actually willing to hold off on the presence. I'll play the Guile and the Abundant Growth. They do have the days. I wanted that Abundant Growth to get days so that next turn I can presence into grass. So I'm happy to trade that days for the Abundant Growth. And here they bounce my Abundant Growth and Surgical it, the one that they daze, which I don't think is a good play. They lost 2 cards. I lost 0, right? Because the Abundant Growth replaced itself. Like, it makes my mana worse, but like right now I've only got green cards anyway, so I don't think that was correct. I'll go ahead and play the Argothune since there's no reason to let them force a negation if they have it. The grass resolves, so even better. The Utopia Sprawls resolves. I'm going to blue because I drew Uro, and I mean, now they're in trouble, right? They have to spend 2 mana to put any kind of clock on me. They do have another land drop, so they get to Brainstorm, but they're down to 3 cards in hand. They have a Borrower Exile.